Today we'll discuss the troubleshooting process for a second-order energy storage system high voltage box that fails to power on. When powering on, after closing the circuit breaker, neither the power indicator light nor the operation light illuminates. This means the high voltage box cannot be powered on and may be malfunctioning. First, we'll open the high voltage box and inspect the internal components. The specific inspection steps are as follows. Now, let's discuss common faults when powering on the mounted box. If the power indicator light on the mounted box does not light up, and there is no response after closing the circuit breaker, the first step is to confirm whether the total positive and negative voltages of the battery pack are normal. Measure the terminal voltage with a multimeter to confirm that the value is within the normal range. If the voltage is abnormal, check the series connection wires and bus bars between the battery packs. First, remove the protective covers of the positive and negative terminals of the mounted box's seismic isolation system. Set the multimeter to the DC voltage range, 1000 volts setting. Measure the terminal voltage. Here, we measured approximately 750 volts, which is within the normal range. If the measured value is incorrect, you need to check the series connection wires and bus bars. In this case, the equipment voltage is normal, but if the mounted box still doesn't light up, further troubleshooting is required by disassembling the mounted box. When the high voltage box fails to power on, and there is still no response after closing the circuit breaker, and the P+ voltage measured by the multimeter is normal, then there is a high probability of an internal fault in the high voltage box. We need to disassemble the high voltage box for repair. Before disassembly, the first step, set the high voltage box circuit breaker to the open position. Second step, remove the P+ terminals and open the terminal covers. Remove the corresponding terminals and cables one by one. Also unplug the network cable. The crucial step, the cables on P+ must be removed. Note that P+ has voltage, hundreds of volts in the entire cabinet. Be extremely careful when removing the wires. It is recommended to remove them from the battery pack end first, disconnecting from the source. Taking this cabinet as an example, this is the P+ main positive cable. This is the P main negative cable. First, remove the main positive cable, using a tool to unscrew the screws. After removing the main positive cable, the positive terminal is disconnected. Next, disconnect the main negative cable. After disconnecting, check that the high voltage cable terminals are de-energized for safety. Then, remove the positive and negative cables on both sides using the same procedure. Finally, remove the 4 screws securing the high voltage box. Carefully remove the high voltage box from the cabinet. After removing the high voltage box, unscrew the surrounding fixing screws and open the top cover, placing it aside. Now you can see the internal structure of the high voltage box. If the high voltage box fails to start after power on, there are 2 common reasons. First, the fuse is blown. Second, the 18650 small battery on the main board is dead, preventing the main board from waking up. First, how to identify and replace a blown fuse. Set the multimeter to the continuity test mode and test the fuse for continuity. It should be continuous. A beep will sound. If there is no sound, it means it is broken and needs to be replaced. Find a new fuse of the same specifications according to the fuse's nameplate parameters. Remove the screws at both ends of the fuse, replace it with a new fuse, and tighten the screws. Note, the fuse copper contacts and screws must be tightened securely. If the fuse is normal, check the 18650 small battery on the main board. Measure the voltage across the battery holder terminals with a multimeter to confirm if it is below 2.9 volts. The normal voltage should be above 3.7 volts. If it is below 2.9 volts, the battery needs to be replaced. Replacement steps. Use a flathead screwdriver or a small prying tool to gently pry up the small battery from both ends and remove it. Clean the adhesive layer around the battery, being careful not to scratch the battery film. Install the new battery according to the positive and negative polarity. After replacement, restore the high voltage box to its original position. Put the high voltage box back into the cabinet, and tighten the 4 fixing screws to prevent loosening. Connect the high voltage box B+ wires and cover the terminal protective cover. Then, install the battery pack negative terminal first, then the positive terminal is shown in the video. Return to the high voltage box, plug in the control line and network cable, and check that the fixing and connections are correct. Manually power on, close the high voltage box circuit breaker, and observe whether it can power on and start normally. If the power and operation indicator lights are on, and after confirming everything is correct, then disconnect the high voltage box. Wait until the indicator lights are completely off before connecting the P+ wires and closing the protective cover. The maintenance is complete, and the equipment is restored to normal operation.